but we have to be talking about things. Mostly what I do at the studio actually is to talk with people about planning ahead and thinking through things. And I think you can, I think that's probably true because I probably have more urgency about that because my dad died early and unexpectedly, and I know it really can make a difference. There's a lot of planning guides out there. The FCA has one with their membership. It's kind of like baby books, though. There's lots of different styles. They can appeal to you in different ways, and you still have to do the work of filling them out. So, I've got a section on my website called Tribute Ideas where you can read some of the many different ways that people find to honor a loved one at the time of death and afterwards, too. And it would be wonderful if you would share any experiences that have been meaningful for you there, because I think that's another way we can keep the conversation going. Calling upon our creativity is a powerful thing. And I do hasten to add the comment from an FCA member, Holly Haynes, that she is concerned about we not add the additional stress of doing it right and perfect in a new way, you know, like a tyranny of the shoulds in a new way. In closing, I'd like to bring up a Museum of Science panel presentation that I heard in 2006 related to the Body World exhibit. The exhibit description was, "This traveling exhibit features more than 200 real human specimens, including whole body plastinates, individual organs, organ configurations, and transparent body slices." So, as you can imagine, even from that language, and you may remember, this generated some controversy. The panel had 4 speakers, all of whom were thoughtful and fascinating to listen to. The first speaker was a Wampanoag man and storyteller named Manitonquit. In the course of his remarks, he mentioned that the remains of his Wampanoag ancestors were being returned from museums, and that no one really knew how to deal with this. There was no precedent. He seemed briefly at a loss for words, and we sat there in silence. There was a sense of emptiness. Later on, the 4th speaker, Mark Auslander, began with a brief overview of his work as an anthropologist, including his interest in Africa. He added that the people he was working with in Africa had been receiving the repatriated remains of their ancestors, and that they had developed rituals to welcome them home and lay them to rest. I saw the first man sit up straight, as he and I both realized what Dr. Auslander was telling us. So likewise, I hope that we can all talk and learn from each other about options and emotionally meaningful, sustainable ways to proceed with the challenges we face. Dr. Auslander also pointed out that artists are often the ones, especially in a secular society, to help us face tough issues, to help open us up to new possibilities, to explore transition times and grapple with momentous experiences like death. And J-RIM, you're certainly giving us the opportunity to consider these topics in new ways with your art and through facilitating this evening. And I'd like to invite all of you here tonight to draw upon your own creativity and put your hand to it. This cardboard casket here is hard to miss, maybe, but this is the one that's really used, can be used for body burial. The miracle of corrugated cardboard in the bottom. I've taken it to environmental fairs, and it's been in other people's art shows. And you can see how other people have responded, ranging from comments about a casket made of cardboard and whether it flies for them. You know, it's not, again, we got to talk. Or to reflections like, what is it about the island of motherlessness that is so barren? So again, I invite you to put your own hand to it, to express your emotions and your responses with comments and with art. See how it feels to you. Join this public conversation and keep the dialogue going. Okay.
So we have time for a couple of questions. If you have anything that you'd like to ask.
So in terms of the studio itself, so you sell biodegradable caskets, you provide a space for
I have an
art
open studio. So I have I keep the studio open hours on Tuesdays from 10 to 2, inviting people to come in to, you know, either work on a very, a commemorative project or to more abstractly. And that's available for families, you know, to come in and make commemorative art, to use if they need a space for the casket. Right, so there's, and these parts all came out of things I I would have found useful. So there's a resource room where I have over 100 books that people can come and look at, ranging on topics from, there's some plans there for how to build your own casket out of plywood, rather, or to, you know, some of the bereavement times, because I would have really liked to have just been able to I didn't really even know what I was looking for sometimes, but just to be able to go someplace, sit there and sort of see what's out there. And there's a fourth thing I usually say, and I'm blanking out of it, so it's on that list. That there. But thank you.
I'll mention something that I'm not a funeral director, but I've done a lot of reading, and a little tidbit on caskets and why I like to see earth-friendly caskets. A columbarium is, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, is where you bury somebody above ground, and it can be for cremated remains or a full body in a casket. Is that correct?
No, that's strictly for cremated remains.
Okay, so it's a mausoleum then above ground?
Right.
Okay. When you go see a mausoleum, you'll note that there are a number of small air vents on the front of that mausoleum or along the sides. The reason for that is because the body emits gases. If you don't have those vents, the top of the mausoleum will blow off, or the front will blow off. It's pretty gastric, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Now, when you go into some of these, like the new, I was in the new crematory, St. Michael's, and they have a beautiful walk-in mausoleum, and they have these specially designed odor eaters. Bodies do things. That's why I like to see the biodegradable piece. Part I want to tell you about is when you read some of these books, the unscrupulous cemetery gravediggers, when nobody's looking, will chip the end of this 100-year sealed vault to let those gases emit. Okay, so the casket that you bought with the super seal, the vault you bought with the super seal, they just chip it with the tine of the backhoe to let nature do its thing. So just be forewarned that it looks great in a showroom, but in real life it's not very practical. So to be as earth-friendly as you can be is today's green effort that people are paying more money for, I think.
Well, I would like to, you know, I'm interested to hear about sort of the structural institutionalization of the industry, and I think about things like the organic food industry, you know, and how they wrestle with it. Anytime you have the development of the funeral directors industry, right? And I've worked in nursing homes, like there's always, it brings up, there's stuff to be dealt with, right? But right now, right here, we can also try to make, at least, you know, move things towards as green choices as we can. And you know, ask for the demands. I mean, 80% of crematoriums, the last time I looked anyway, the stats, didn't have air emission filters. Well, if we decide to cremate, but at least we're asking the crematoriums for those. You know, it's expensive to retrofit. You know, but consumer demand does have something to be said for it.
Well, one of the statistics that you did mention, and I like the visual of the Golden Gate Bridge. If you cremate Uncle Buck, I think the carbon footprint is significantly less than if you strip the wood to make the casket and the metal to make the vault and the formaldehyde to do all that stuff. Right? I think it's a lot more
I think the
efficient.
whole life cycle analysis, you know, I haven't done all that. I do try to pay due diligence to like fair trade and those kinds of issues. I think it's like, again, I think it's something for families to think about with those issues in mind. Like, okay, we have, you know, land use every year with however many people you said die. What I know is that, you know, if those graves are in a conventional cemetery are laid, and then that's like 875 football fields. You know, so that's significant. But if we can, you know, make other choices, you know, find ways to partner with the land trusts, if we become less connected with the idea that we have to have, you know, our family plot, but, you know, if we can reuse. I mean, you, I think, told me, is it Singapore where the municipal cemeteries are closed? Well, I looked up, there's one cemetery in Singapore, and the graves time is for 15 years, and then you are removing the remains and doing something else with them. So we're being, and we can relate here, right? You know, cemetery is prime real estate, especially in Boston, and we want to be thinking about these things because, you know, Cynthia Beale, who imports Eagle Pod, she says, don't leave a mess. You know, again, like, can we die as we live? If we're concerned about these issues in our life, why wouldn't we think about them now? And I would like, I do really, again, I came from it to this more from an emotional piece, like what would hold meaning for me? What would I find beautiful, comforting? There's so little comfort we have when someone dies that, I'd like to think about these things.
Can I just comment on the thing you said about the gases and stuff, and maybe you're going to talk something about this, but there's a real difference between aerobic and anaerobic decomposition. If you don't have air in there, you're going to create a sludgy mess, and the gases are going to be, it's going to be a mess. Whereas if it's exposed to the air and exposed to animal life in the soil or whatever, it's going to be a natural process that is not problematic.
Paul knows
Also
the rule.
remember,
What's the rule, Paul?
Casper's Law, 128, a body starts to decompose after 1 week in air, 2 weeks in water, and 8 weeks in sand.
Then they had that thing, the body farm, I think it was, South Carolina.
Tennessee.
I'm sorry. They had the body farm, which is where they figure out, I guess, the averages if you leave the body exposed. So a lot of these stats, even when the police are doing investigations, are these averages to say if the body is such and such, then it means 3 hours, 4 hours since death. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I sit there and I think that when I was walking through the cemetery, I was thinking about, we don't have pyramids in America that are the same kind as I'm looking at 500 of them as I walk along in terms of indicative of the culture, in terms of what we can afford to lock away in the ground and never worry about again. And the thing what Joe had said about different, he had this whole, all different customs for green burial. I don't know if everyone coming to the table is so much about the green issue for some. For some, it'll be an issue of breaking down all the costs and benefits of, what's going into this multi-million-dollar industry. For some, it is a case of people going after the funeral industry. There are, various issues where we had that thing up in Seabrook, or was it right in New Hampshire, the issues about the funeral?
Yeah, you're right.
So there is issues about public trust there and other things like that, but I mean, I wonder also people moving. I mean, why are people locked to a place where a cemetery is, where you're going to move away and your kids all move away? But at the same time, when we talk about the bottle of water, I mean, isn't that just an exchange of one totem for another? And you talk about people like, let's get all the ashes, anybody else got ashes laying around the house, and let's all get it together. An aunt, an uncle, a dog, and a cat going out to sea, but I mean, I don't know, it's people's different. I think everyone's bringing a much different set of values to it. I think that's the issue of choice. Is that, I think the general public doesn't know these things. I didn't. I mean, this is a lot educated to me. I didn't think I had much of any choice. It really bothered me to think, what are they preserving meat for? I mean, I would joke with people in my family, just, throw me in a dumpster. I mean, it doesn't matter to me, because there's an issue about legally who owns that body. You're talking about your body, what's going to happen to it. Do you really own it? Does the state say it owns it? I don't know. I mean, I'm going off target, but that's just...
One thing you just said, very interesting. It's a very transient society. When I grew up in Situate, we had Gaffey and Richardson Funeral Home. Everybody goes to Gaffey and Richardson Funeral Home. When people call us today for burial at sea and a pre-need,
You don't make a slide.
No. What funeral home are you using so we can send the information? We don't have funeral home. What do you mean? Well, we moved from Chicago to San Diego to Austin, and now we're here, but we don't have one. Which means that the society is so transient that there is no reason for a memorial in an expensive cemetery, because people move a lot. That's what's great about cremation, because you can put a little bit here, a little bit there, bring some with you. Everybody can share.
That's why cremation is on the rise.
Yeah.
We're just going to see more of it.
In Asia, we were talking about Singapore, it's actually China. The average wage in China is $1 per day. They're paying you $30 to bury at sea. If grandma's been buried for 100 years, they're paying you $300 as of a month ago. $300 for 10 months worth of labor to disinter and bury at sea, because there's no money. So anyway, those are some factoids that are
Remember,
real.
in Singapore, the old burial grounds are being moved too, because again, it's prime real estate.
Yeah.
But
Well, in Europe too,
That's
you
in Europe,
you don't have a plot in perpetuity. You have it for a certain number of years.
Right.
Now that I've been banned.
25 to 50